I'm Larry Markle. I'm the Director of Disability Services at Ball State. This is my 17th year in Disability Services, and the mission of the office is to facilitate accommodations for Ball State students with disabilities. We have about 900 students that use services from this office, and that would include students with physical disabilities, as well as students with non-apparent disabilities, psychological disabilities, learning disabilities, etc. Diversity is so important, and oftentimes people don't tend to think of disability as part of the diversity mix, but if you do include disability as part of diversity, it's the largest group, because there are millions of Americans that have some form of disability, and I think it's good for business if I'm a person with a disability and I come into a business and see somebody like me, that's working there. It's going to tell me a little bit about the company and what that company values. I think the most important thing I would say that's a stereotype or stigma relative to disability is that people with disabilities can't do something, because the person has a disability that he or she isn't able to do the job. And that's one of the most important things when I talk to people, to different groups, about students with disabilities at Ball State, is I always make the point that every student with a disability at Ball State had to meet the same admission standards that everybody else did. They meet the same degree requirements, all the assignments, everything in the class is the same. They just may need a reasonable accommodation to do the coursework or to do the job in that matter. So I think lowering standards for people with disabilities is especially problematic. I would say the first thing is to make sure that they're accessible for people with disabilities. I mean, and we think of that in terms of physical accessibility. Certainly, if a person in a wheelchair can't get into the business, that's kind of a bad first sign for the person with a disability. But also making sure that the technology presence that the company might have, that the business has, is accessible. Is what they put on the website accessible for somebody who is blind? If there's any kind of video or audio, does it have captioning for somebody who is deaf? So I think making those kind of accessibility standards is a good first step. I also think it's important for businesses maybe just to have a little statement somewhere in any promotional materials, brochures, or a website that says, we welcome and value all people. If you need an accommodation to participate in the goods and services we offer, please let us know. We'd be happy to work with you. Something like that. So I think being proactive in reaching out to people with disabilities is so important. Oftentimes students that have physical disabilities, chair users, students who are blind, for example, there's still a disconnect for them often in finding sustainable, meaningful employment. And so for the last few years, we've worked with some partners in Indianapolis to create full-time paid internships for our students with disabilities. That has blossomed into helping us get an internal grant to where we've been able to hire a full-time person to work with all students with disabilities on career development issues. So something that we're pretty excited about. The most rewarding part of my job is coming up in about a week and a half from now, graduation day, because students with disabilities come here with the same goals that everybody else comes here with. And the primary goal is to graduate. And so when I see the list of students that are graduating and I see so many names of students with disabilities on that list, it's a happy day for me knowing that these students have achieved the goal that they set out for when they came here.